Today I have a really exciting guest on, Coach John Fish. Thanks for coming on, Coach.
And thank you for having me. And it's an honor to get to come on and talk about Woodrow Wilson football and just talk about football in general, brother.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it. So, Coach Fish, he is the athletic director and head football coach at Woodrow Wilson High School, right outside of Dallas, Texas, right?
Yes, sir. Yeah, right here on the east side of Dallas.
Nice. So, to kick things off, Coach, can you just share with the audience about your coaching career and even your playing career prior to coaching?
Yeah, of course, man. It's kind of unique, man. The way I've been so blessed to be at this high school, man. We're the only public high school in the country that has two Heisman Trophy winners from it. It's a really great place to be. But the path here for me, man, was really unique in that, man, I grew up in Southwest Oklahoma. Graduated high school with 48 kids. Man, out in the middle of nowhere, and man, I was, one of those four sport athletes in high school. Man, I played everything and was pretty good at everything, but probably not great at one thing. Um, had a couple of opportunities out of high school to go play college football. Had opportunity to play college baseball as well. And man, I ended up taking the baseball path, and that's probably no whole nother episode of how that decision came to be made. But man, I played college baseball for 4 years and ended up. Man, I knew whenever I got to college that football was my love, it was my passion. But I needed to make sure I stayed connected to that in some way, and knew that coaching was probably going to be that. So, out of college, man, I was blessed enough to start my career at Del City High School, which is a 6A school. I think they're 5A now. Right outside Oklahoma City, and it was an awesome opportunity for me because, most of the people you talk to probably that are in coaching, they'll tell you that the world of playing versus coaching are two drastically different things. I came into it with the understanding as a player of what it was and then what it required. But when you look at the coaching side, it's so much more than what you ever, can really realize until you've done it. And so I was really blessed to get to work under a man named Nick Wareheim. His oldest son is the offensive line coach at Coastal Carolina right now. Coach Wareheim's kind of an Oklahoma legend. His youngest son Jake is also I think he's a Division II coach. I don't know where he's at now, man. He's been about 3 or 4 different places over the past few years, but I got to work under really good pedigree, and got to learn really quick what coaching was, and it was about pouring into kids, loving kids. Football just was the vehicle we got to do it with, and so man, Del City High School is a socioeconomically a challenging place to be, and to start my career there was great because I didn't know any better. It's all I knew, and so for a young coach, when they talk about that it takes what it takes, I got to learn that firsthand right out of the gate, and so that was just so big for me. My passion, I feel like God's made a place of calling on my heart to pour into kids and to love kids and to help them find value through this sport and to grow them, and then obviously be successful not just on the field but off the field. And as I think most coaches that are in this high school profession are, which is what makes it so great. So I spent 3 years there. So my first year as a receivers coach, and then in year two, I got to take over the offense and ran the offense as the offense coordinator, and spent 2 years there after that. So three total at Del City. Got lucky enough to meet my wife, who was from Texas, and man, she was teaching there right outside Oklahoma City, and man, she was trying to get to Texas, and I had tried to get to Texas right out of college, and learned real quick, if you don't know anybody in Texas, you ain't getting a job. And so man, it was really kind of cool because my now father-in-law was a head football coach in Texas, and so it kind of allowed me a little bit more path of navigation of finding a job down here. And man, I was so blessed to be able to after those 3 years at Del City, get on at Frisco Lone Star, which they had just opened their school 2 years prior. So it was a brand new high school in Frisco ISD. At the time, they had, 4 or 5 high schools. I think they're up to 12 or 13 now. Just a massive, growth area of Dallas that's happening. And so, man, it was really great because I had to work under Jeff Rayburn, who's, a mentor and a personal friend, and had just really took all the raw knowledge and the raw things that it takes to be a great high school coach that I had at Del City, and really mentored me into shaping up who I was going to be as a coach. And man, I'm forever indebted to those guys because, man, I got two different worlds, a world of just being able to handle the chaos, and then a world of program building. And so, man, I was so blessed to get to work under those guys. We ended up playing for a state title in 2015 at Lone Star, which was a huge deal in a multi-high school district down here for a school to get to do that and to build that. And now, I mean, Lone Star is state ranked, and year in and year out, and just a really great program that Coach Rayburn started there and built there. And so, man, in 2000, I ended up working up there after my third year there. I got to take over as the offensive coordinator at Lone Star, and had, again, a ton of success. And it was great. And just, seeing the way we got to impact kids every day was awesome. Got my first head job in a little town called Bonham, Texas. So, right by the Red River, between the Oklahoma and Texas cutoff, small 3A school. And man, you kind of start over. It's like, okay, you learn how to be the assistant, you learn how to be the coordinator. Now you get to cannonball into being a head football coach. And man, I spent 2 years there. And just people tell you all the time, about being a head football coach is that, until you sat in that chair, you just don't know. And I thought, man, I came from the best mentors I could possibly dream of. And I felt like I had a great grasp on what it was, but you really don't. You don't know until you're in that chair and what it is. And so, man, we had a lot of success there, especially in year one at Bonham. We got to won a bunch of football games, won more games in 1 year than I had in the previous 20 combined. Just a great experience. But at the time of my life, I was becoming a new father, and I was driving an hour to and from work every day, and ended up, man, it wasn't working out, man, the way we kind of were hoping that it would. And so I ended up going actually back to Lone Star as the assistant head coach, and then ended up taking over as the OC again. Spent 2 years there, and then now, going into year 2 here at Woodrow Wilson High School.
Wow. So that's pretty impressive resume, Coach. So going back to what you had said just about I think it was your second stint at Lone Star. I just looked into a little bit about your career online before the call today, and it looks like you coordinated an offense that averaged like over 46 points a game. So can you just talk a little bit more about maybe some of your offensive philosophies since you came from that background as a coordinator?
Sure. Yeah. And nothing makes me happier, man, talking some offensive ball. Man, one of the things that I learned, especially under Nick Wareheim, was that, man, if you don't have an identity, then you're never going to be as successful. Your success won't be sustainable. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we look at for us is that, we have an identity rooted into who we are and what we do offensively. And now, part of that identity is being highly adaptable to the kids that we have, right? You're in high school. You don't get to choose the kids that walk through your doors. You coach the kids that are zoned to go to you. And so I think that's where, I love watching college offenses and different things of that nature, and NFL and all that good stuff. But the reality is those guys are recruiting players for systems. High school's different, man. You've got to have a system that's highly adaptable to the kids that are going to be coming in and out of your hallways. And so for us, man, just our identity, man, we play fast. We are a spread offense. It's going to be up tempo and force the ball, not just vertically, but horizontally around the field, and just to take advantage of space. We're an inside zone team, run a little bit of power and trap. But we're going to hang our hat on running inside zone at a high level, and then obviously being able to get the ball in space to our kids, you know, and let them go do what's the hardest thing to do in sports, and that's tackle people in space. And so by doing that, man, and we were blessed at Lone Star. We had some really good players, man, that went through there. You know, you know, you want to sit here all day and think you're a guru, but the reality is, man, it ain't real hard to get the ball in the best kid's hands and let him go be a dude, right? And so that is the shape of what we do. You know, we have a core value of the things that we're going to hang our hat on, and from that create our wrinkles from that, and build it each week, from a simple 4-day install that we work, that is all of our base stuff, from formations to run game to pass game families, and then build off of that from there. And so each week we bring kids in, they're not learning something new. You know, they may learn a wrinkle off of a play, but it's something that is already instilled in them in a core value of the offense. That way, you're not taking this 16-year-old kid every week and trying to teach him a brand new thing. You know, I kind of hung my hat on coaching quarterbacks throughout my career, and you know, it's the hardest thing to do in sports, play quarterback, man. Stand in the eye of the hurricane, and you know, you got to be able to be calm in the chaos. And so I think if your system is not simple, if it is not something that you're building each week that's going to build off of what you're already doing, I think you're doing a real disservice to quarterbacks, man.
Yeah. So as a player yourself, coach, were you a quarterback?
Yes, sir, I was. Yeah, I
Okay.
play again. Growing up where I grew up, man, it was playing quarterback, then playing safety on defense, and you know, I was a kickoff guy on kickoff. I was the return guy on return. Never really came off the field in that Iron Man football, man.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I kind of got that from your explanations. You just seem to have a good grasp on the whole offensive game. So what was that? Can you talk a little bit about like what that was like coming from being a player, obviously, and I know it was a little bit of a different path going and playing baseball, but what was that transition like being a player to eventually being a coach?
Yeah, and you know, and I think it's interesting too because you know, not playing college football, you know, I was still, you know, if you play college athletics, man, it's a whole nother level. You know, we tell our kids all the time, man, like, you know, most guys that go play college football, man, the ones that buy into it have a great experience, but it does become like a job. You know, you're there for a reason, and that reason is playing football. You know, obviously you're there to get an education, but you know, especially if they're paying for your school, man, that's your job. And so you know, it was kind of the same experience I had, you know, playing baseball. Was, man, this isn't about just being on the team and, you know, having a good time. It's about going out and producing. And so, you know, when that level kind of steps up a little bit right there, I think a lot of players, especially, you know, I've been so blessed to get to coach great players that are, you know, played big time college ball, and worked with coaches that played. I've got Sergio Kendall on staff this year with us, who was at UT, an All-American at UT. You know, we've got, you know, the list of kids that we've sent to college, from Marvin Mims, Garrett Rangel, who's playing quarterback at Oklahoma State, Jason Shelley. I mean, we've had a who's list. Ashton Genty playing at Boise State right now, leading the nation in all-purpose yards. I mean, we've got to see in that world and see how it changes in the compare and contrast it. And I think, man, just for me personally, you know, pouring into these kids and allowing them the opportunity to go experience that is huge. But it is different. And I think my experience in high school, you know, it was a little bit kind of, you know, I didn't really know what to do when I got there. You know, I went from being big man on campus, you know, at this small school in Oklahoma, to, man, you're surrounded by guys that all have the same skill level as you. They are trying to find ways to separate themselves. And, man, jumping from that high school world to that world is a lot. And so I think that's where you see a lot of players that, you know, that have success and don't have success. It's really not about their skill level, it's their ability to respond to that massive change in their world.
Yeah, gotcha. So going back to I think you said that you are in your second year at Woodrow Wilson.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what was that transition like going? I think you said you were a head coach back to coordinator and then a head
Yeah.
coach again.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had, man, it's interesting. You know, I feel like God has blessed me to have so many different experiences that have grown me, and I feel every single day that I get the opportunity to grow, man, and getting to just have this privilege of getting to do this job. I mean, it's the greatest profession in the world, but man, it gets you in so many different situations. You know, it's not the typical, you know, be an assistant, be a coordinator, be a head coach, do that for 20 years and retire. For me, it was, you know, kind of a path that was a little bit different, but it's allowed me to have a lot of great, you know, different experiences that, you know, given me some perspective now where I'm at to be able to, I think, be better at what I do because of those experiences. And so, man, just to start with, you know, just going that traditional route of becoming a head coach, you know, that was great for me. But again, I think it was one of the hardest things was going from being the head guy back to the assistant, right? I mean, everything from, man, you were the guy making all the decisions, all the things, all the, you know, you were the man, to now you're back to serving, you know, the head coach that you're under, and doing it their way and doing it the, you know, regardless of what your opinion is on what's happening. You know, I hate to use the term drinking the Kool-Aid, but you're drinking the Kool-Aid, and man, it's, you know, his idea is your idea, man, and we have ownership in this, even though you're not the one running it. And I think for me, that was a great humbling experience. It was a lesson in humility to go, man, you can only be as good as a head coach by serving and being willing to lay that ego down that man, as men, we all have. And so, man, that 2 years going back to Lone Star before I took this job, had I taken that from that head job to another head job, I don't think I would have been as, you know, as good at it, or had the blessing that I have now to be able to come now on my second time around on this, to be able to really look at how am I dying to myself every single day to make sure I'm serving my coaches, serving my kids, making sure that I'm serving my administration that I work for, and being grateful for that, not just, you know, because it can't be about me. And so that was a huge lesson that I needed. So going, you know, now back into this now, man, God has blessed me in this high school that, man, we're, you know, in the past 2 years, we've been able to kind of blow this thing up on a level that we saw the potential of. I mean, like I said, when you're the only public high school in the country that has 2 Heisman Trophy winners from it, that's a big deal. And so, you know, we immediately coined this Heisman High, which has garnered a ton of attention for our kids and our program, from everybody from, you know, Dave Campbell's down here, who's the big Texas, you know, media outlet, to I even did a podcast with the actual Heisman Trust about a month ago, and they started garnering attention down here at what's going on, what's happening. And man, it's just been such an amazing process for me, because had I not gone through that road to get to where I'm at, and the challenges and the you know, the highs and the lows of it, and the valley, and staying true to the why of why we're here, I wouldn't be able to do this job at the level that God has called me to.
Yeah. Yeah. So you got me curious, Coach. Which 2 Heisman Trophy winners went to Woodrow
Uh,
Wilson?
Tim Brown and Davey O'Brien.
Okay.
So
Cool.
it's pretty cool, man. Tim still comes around. You know, we text about once every, you know, 3 or 4 weeks. You know, he's such a good dude, and does so much for our program. He runs a golf tournament for us here, that fundraises a ton of money for our booster club, which obviously supports our kids and our program. Man, and just being able to have that connection. And then if you look at the list of people that have gone to Woodrow Wilson High School, even outside of football, I mean, it's a who's who. I mean, everybody from the Steve Miller Band went here. ZZ Top went to high
Wow.
school here. The guy that created the margarita machine went here. Uh, the guy that created the Shelby Cobra graduated from here. Like, it's just a cool school, man, right here on the east side of Dallas, man, that not a ton of people know about, but we're trying to change that.
Wow. Wow. That's really interesting. So going back to your experiences, what advice would you give a coach that might be like maybe you 10 or 15 years ago when you were just starting off?
Yeah. Man, I think the biggest thing, the perspective that looking back, I knew the second I set my foot on a high school campus to be a coach, that there was a calling for me to do it. It was deeper than me going in to find just a job, right? I think right now it's really hard in the world that we live in of, social media and the constant, man, there's another thing, there's another thing, there's another thing. We're constantly chasing things. And even as a young coach, I knew I wanted to be a head coach. I knew that I wanted to lead programs, but I was just so grateful to get the opportunity to do this job, to be a part of this. And so, man, I tell young coaches all the time, like, man, if this isn't deeper for you, if there's not a purpose behind this job, if this for you is a job of, man, I get paid a decent salary to teach and to coach, and all these little cool things I get to do. If that's all it is for you, man, it won't last. You'll get burnt out, because this isn't a typical job, man. This is not a 9 to 5. There isn't a start date and an end date. There's not a start time and an end time. Like, this is a lifestyle you're choosing, and it's really like being a part of a ministry. I mean, I talk about it all the time, and this is a ministry for us because there's no clock in and clock out. And so for young coaches, and I think especially today, they need to hear that, because I think everything else in the world is telling them, no, 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 no. It's you need to, there's always something better. And, if you had to work late, then that's, oh, they got to take care of you. The reality is, man, is that if you have a passion for doing this, then, man, when it's hard, when you're having to get up at 5 a.m. to go pick up 3 kids to make sure they get up here to be able to work out, when you got to stay late because there's so much data to input on the film, you got to go in and get elbow deep in a basket of dirty laundry, and wash it and then hang it. Man, that's part of the process. And in that moment, instead of having the mindset of, I can't believe I have to do this, man, turn that around and thank God in that moment that you get to do this, because, man, this is the greatest, most fulfilling profession that there is out there. And there's nothing like it. This is not an accounting job. This ain't there's nothing like this profession. And if your mindset is right, your heart's right, your passion is right for why you're doing it, it's the most rewarding career you'll ever have.
Yeah. I think you're entirely true, just completely right about the fact that it all has to do with your mindset. You can choose to look at it in a certain light, and if you do that, it might feel like it's not, always the best thing. But
Yeah.
if you have a positive outlook and everything you do is for a reason. And
That's right.
I think the biggest takeaway that I got from our conversation is being purpose driven, and
Yep.
always being intentional about what it is that you're doing, and just being cognizant of the fact that, like you were saying, coaches are in one of the best professions out there. You get to impact young kids. So Coach, yeah,
it's fun, because if you put this job down on paper of what the reality that you do in your day to day, people will read that and go, "You did what?" They can't believe it. But, man, when you're in it and you're doing it, man, and there's something deeper there for your reason of doing that purpose, man, it's like, yeah, I did that, and I love it. So there's no other way around it.
right. No, totally agree. Totally agree. So, any last words, Coach?
No, man, I just appreciate you giving us the opportunity, man, to come on here, and hopefully, some young coaches get to hear this, and man, I'm very hopeful for the future of coaching in high school, man, because man, I think right now it's a profession. Education's a hard profession to be in, and I hope that there's young coaches out there right now, whether they're on a college campus or maybe they're in a job that they're not happy in right now because they're not getting fed that soulful food, man, of getting to do this and serve kids every day, that man, this is the greatest thing in the world to get to do. And I would challenge any of them that, man, if you feel like you're missing something in your life, dude, take a look at it, because it's the greatest thing in the world.
Yes, sir. Well, Coach, it truly was a pleasure talking with you, and really, really appreciate you sharing today. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.